Vicky, we're here at the very special Fenwick stud. Several generations of history here for your family. Tell us about it.
Well, my great-grandfather first came here, well, he leased the property first in 1898 and he officially purchased the property in 1903. So he came out from Scotland originally because his uncle owned and ran the Foy and Gibson store in the city. So he came out to manage basically the manufacturing plant in Collingwood and Fitzroy, which is all still there. All the old buildings are all still there. And he bought this and named it Fenwick. We all call it, it's been Australianised into Fenwick. He bought Fenwick and named it Fenwick because that was where he grew up in Scotland. Yeah, so that's how it started.
This property is famous for a number of different reasons. One is the superb breeding of horses over the years, Clydesdales early on, Welsh ponies, your beautiful Arabian horses here. But from a planning perspective and a heritage perspective, it's really famous for 50 odd of the most sublime dry stone walls. How do you go about protecting them?
Well, luckily, they kind of look after themselves. You really don't have to do too much. Look, really the only thing we have to protect them against is kangaroos. The kangaroos will knock down the walls in the process of getting from A to B. But in terms of the livestock, they're pretty good with them. They don't do too much to them. And obviously over the years, in certain areas they've sort of drooped and splayed a bit, and we try and rebuild them as best we can, but more often than not those ones, star steel posts are popped in and wire goes along them just so that you can maintain the base as the rock wall, but you've got the extra height with your star steels and your wire.
It's such a magnificent property. How does that responsibility for you as the fourth generation here to keep it going and keep the name moving along, how does that sit with you?
As far as the property goes, I mean, I'd love to see it protected, entirely in the future, and just to be somewhere that people can come. I mean, I take photos myself, so I'm a photographer, so I love walking around here and taking photos, and I'd love it to be somewhere that people could come out and take photos and enjoy it as well, because there's not much of it around now, and to be so close to Melbourne and be out in the middle of nowhere is a very special thing.
To have these dry stone walls still here today, they're all around your property and totally functional. You use them in place
100%.
of modern fences.
Yeah. Well, why pull something down if it's working? I'm very much of a, if it ain't broke, don't change it. I mean, the yards here that we're standing next to, they're our main stockyards that we use, and they hold everything in quite well. And I mean, look, in terms of the exterior boundary fences and even the interior ones, horses will very rarely go over a rock wall. It's visible, it's there, it's a solid thing. So they'll go, oh, run, solid wall. Oh, won't go over that. Or if they do, they'll clear it. But very rarely we have that as an issue. So they are definitely functional.
Vicky, thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit of the history of Fenwick Stud.
Not a problem.
Well, in the rural division of the city of Whittlesea is the beautiful Rock Bank, which was purchased by Samuel Jeffrey back in 1853. Over 170 years later, it's still a functioning farm. Marge Jeffrey, tell us a bit about this place.
Well, it was purchased in 1853 when the whole area here was divided up for auction. And the government was Crown land, and the government opened it up and sold it in half sections, which was a half-mile road frontage and a mile depth. And so this is still the same property as was done in those days. And we've just run cattle ever since it started. It was a dairy farm to start off with, and the cattle were Jersey and Guernsey with an Angus stud. And now it's just Angus, commercial Angus, yes.
There's a lot of historical elements still visible today on the property. The house, of course.
Yes, which is bluestone. It was quarried in the paddock next to the house, and the quarry is now used as a waterhole, but that was where the stone was, and that was in 1881. And then of course, the stone walls and the drafting yards are stone walls, which had to be built very strong, so because of the cattle, and then there's lots of stone walls that divide the paddocks into the appropriate areas.
It's probably like asking you who's your favourite child, but do you have a favourite dry stone wall on the property?
There is one just over there, because it's an internal wall, it's all intact. It's on a bit of a stony rise so that the cattle don't bump up against it and knock it around. And it's probably my favourite because it looks so beautiful.
Thank you for sharing with us some of the history of the 171-year-old Jeffrey family rock bank.
Thank you.